quickly show you how I add shadows and highlights to a painting. So twice a week, 6 times a month, I go live in my Inner Circle Facebook group. So I have a painting membership online where you can learn to paint with me throughout the month, and you can choose whichever painting you want to paint at home, or you could paint all of them. But this painting is about a hummingbird and a little sunflower. And after I paint the base coat, then I add shadows and highlights. So for instance, with the greens, I painted it green, and then I added the highlights, which are the light yellowy green. So I take a little pointy brush, a little bit of yellow and white and green, mix a little yellow, white, and green. This is gonna give you a lighter green. And then we just use the pointy brush, and we're just gonna paint these little tips with a bright pop of highlight. And then we did that on all these little edges here. And then after that, I took a little bit of black on my brush with a tiny bit of water, and we just added these little highlights just in the little cracks. So that's base coat, highlights, and then a little shadows. And we get this beautiful three-dimensional effect that doesn't have to be perfect. Now on the hummingbird, the way we created these beautiful iridescent feathers is we started with a dark blue, and then I'm gonna add the lightest blues on top. So first I added a very dark blue. We just sectioned him into 3 shapes. We did his body, and then we had his head and his throat. So I did the dark blue first, then I added cobalt blue, which is a lighter blue, and we added some little feathers. Whenever you do a bird, you always want to paint in the direction of the feathers. And then I just took a little bit of white and cobalt blue. So this white and cobalt blue is going to be the iridescent feathers. And we just use the tip of the brush to create a little feather dab. Basically, it's just like a little dot. And we use this really light blue to make the brightest highlights. So watch this. We're just going to take that little bit of white blue and just pop out a few little feathers. Because when something's iridescent, there's a lot of contrast to it. So we just add a couple of feathers that are catching the light with that white and blue. We don't do all the feathers, just a few. That's what makes it look like it's actually catching the light. And we did the same thing to the green and teal on his neck. And we also did the same thing to the purple and white on his forehead. So we just take a little of the white, mix it with some purple, and then we just paint it in the direction of the feathers. So I'm gonna add a couple more highlights to the top of his head with a little extra white and purple, just so I can show you. And we just go dab, dab. Let me get a little bit more white, actually. Remember, the contrast is what is gonna make it pop. So we're gonna just get a little extra white and purple and just make a few little dabs. So it looks like the front of his face is getting lit by the sun. And that's how we make all the little highlights, base coats, highlights, shadows. And by following my simple methodology, you too can create this little cute bird with the backlight. And that little backlight we painted with a smaller brush. We just added the little light blue and white to give him a little fuzzy edge. So it looks like the light is coming from behind. Okay, so I know that I see comments all the time that highlights and shadows are one of the hardest things for beginners to do, but in Michelle's Inner Circle membership, I will teach you all about the shadows and highlights and how to make them super simple by breaking them down into 3 easy steps. And then, even though it looks like it might be a little bit beyond you, you can also create something that is very advanced looking, but using some very basic techniques. All right, well, if you're interested in more information about the Michelle's Inner Circle, just visit my website, artraveinc.com. And there's more information about joining. The membership is open now. And this exact painting will be available to paint for all members in about another week. All right, bye everyone.